All right, guys, welcome back into another NFL DFS live video. Got the Week 7 slate here for you, and there's already some interesting news that we got to get into, so I'll just pull it up here right now. So we got to figure out what is going on with the Green Bay Packers side of the ball there. So Aaron Jones, it's looking like he is questionable. He could play, he might sit. We'll pull that one up here real quick. So as of this morning, we haven't received an update on him. If he does play, if he does start, you still got to think about playing him. With the Packers, the way that they handle their injury situations, if he is healthy enough to play, if he isn't healthy enough to play, they wouldn't play him. So if he is healthy enough to play, you would expect him to play the full amount of snaps. You saw it with Devontae Adams through the first part of the season. They're not going to play a guy if he's actually injured, if they're worried about them aggravating the injury again. So if he does play, I don't mind him. Obviously, if he said so, Jamal Williams is going to be the go-to play this week. But if Aaron Jones does sit, I actually really love Devontae Adams. It's going to be tough for me to pass him up. It's going to be a great play there. Hey, Billy, if you want to, you can send me some information there. Definitely. If you want to shoot me a thing on Twitter, a message on Twitter, you can. Message me on the 9 to 5 chat. Send me an email. That'd be perfectly fine. The best way to get to me is actually on Twitter. So check me out on there. Send me a message there. Love having you in the chat, man. But yeah, so the Aaron Jones thing is going to be tough because Jamal Williams will be using the passing game. If Aaron Jones sits, he's going to be the one I want to go with the most, although A.J. Dillon could definitely get involved, in the running game. This is a matchup where you just got to run downhill. I mean, you saw it last week with Derrick Henry. If there's anyone that's the closest similarity to Derrick Henry, it's probably A.J. Dillon. So Packers could see that and be like, all right, we're just going to ground and pound them, which Williams and Dillon would be perfectly fine. So it's going to be tough. How much value is too much value? I'll get into that. There's just way too much value. So I'll talk about the next play here. And right after this, I want to look up Tyler Ervin real quick and see if he's active, because that could actually change a little bit. All right, so Tyler Ervin's out. He's still out. Okay, that's good. That's good news. That would have made the Green Bay Packers situation a little bit tough. But so Jamison Crowder, he's doubtful, which makes the Giants side of the ball a little bit more difficult. So I'll pull him up here real quick as well. So you got Perriman, who was already too cheap, already going to be in the player pool there. I don't really think he changes too much, although I do like him a ton with Sam Darnold active now. He's going to get around 8 targets. It's whether or not I think Sam Darnold is a little bit more accurate right now than Joe Flacco was. Joe Flacco missed Perriman on a couple of deep passes that easily would have put him at 15 DK points. So, the big game was there for Perriman last week, and obviously with Crowder out, it should be there for him again. But I don't want to sleep on Braxton Berrios. So it was a couple Thursday nights ago where I was like, Berrios is going to be a decent value play. I expect Jamison Crowder to move to the outside so that Berrios can continue to play in the slot because he had looked so good. I knew it was a gamble, but I kind of, with the Jets beat writers, you kind of just got to try to guess and see what's going to happen. That's kind of the problem this week. Although I love Berrios, he should play the slot. And you saw when he played the slot earlier in the year, he played well, 16.4, 17.9, and he's going against the Buffalo Bills, who, as we know, as 9 to 5 knows, you want to attack them with either the slot receiver or the star tight end. And Jets don't really have a star tight end, so Braxton Berrios, almost at the min price. That's going to be tough. And there's one more other value play that I want to touch on before we really get into everything. I tweeted about this guy a decent amount. Marquez Callaway. He's looked good on film, especially last week. 6 targets last week, had 7.4 DK points. With MT out, with Sanders out, I expect him to get involved in the passing game a lot. And for a guy that looked good on film, for a guy that had 7.4 DK points, I like it a ton. Jerry's asking about Traquan Smith from the Saints. Yes, you can, but I think Callaway has looked better, so I would rather just take the price discount with Callaway, although I don't think you have to force either of them. So Infamous is wondering, Bakhtiari is ruled out. So, I think Jamal Williams is more safe just because he's going to be using the passing game the most. A.J. Dillon, we just haven't seen him been using the passing game, so we can't really predict that. That's why I was kind of wondering if Tyler Ervin was active or not, because he would have been a sneaky play. I wish DraftKings still had the 3K running back options like they did in years past, because this slate would be a lot more interesting than the 4K minimum makes it tough. One other play that I want to touch on as well real quick, Joe Mixon is out, kind of a surprising one. So with Joe Mixon out, you got Giovanni Bernard. So we'll just look at Joe Mixon's average. If Giovanni Bernard just does what Joe Mixon has done, he's going to hit value pretty much. In the games, throughout Joe Mixon's career that he has sat, Giovanni Bernard is averaging over 14 DK points per game, which is absolutely phenomenal. Now, yes, it's a different coaching room from kind of the last time that Giovanni Bernard really had to take over the running back role. So, take it with a grain of salt, but still, obviously had 11.8 DK points last week. Great price point for him. So there's a ton of value there. And guys, if any news comes in throughout the live video on Aaron Jones or something like that, let me know, because there's going to be some slight breaking news. And, while I'm live, it's tough to see that. But we'll start off here with the first game, Carolina versus the Saints. Interesting one. Infamous is hoping that Adam Gase gets fired today. So one quick question for the chat. So we see all these players from Adam Gase go off and start really producing, kind of becoming star players. Now, yes, you could say Adam Gase is a bad coach, that while he's with them, they haven't been able to produce. But maybe he's a good coach because he coaches them up the correct way, so that when they actually finally get a time to, be utilized, they go on and dominate. There's an interesting thought there. Obviously, he's a horrible head coach. There's no doubt about that. He should be fired. But from a coaching perspective, he might be decent. Just coaching players up the correct way, which is annoying for fantasy. But he's a horrible head coach. Let's not kid ourselves about it. I'm not defending Adam Gase, but there could be something there. Anyways, this game is interesting here with the Panthers versus the Saints. So Teddy Bridgewater is a price discount play. I don't think we have to go with him because there are a ton of great value quarterbacks here on the slate. But, if you want to stack DJ Moore and Teddy Bridgewater, you can do that. I still think that DJ Moore is going to find his way to be the number one receiver in this offense. I touched on it last week. Robbie Anderson's going to start demanding more focus from defenses. So with that, the targets are going to start to go DJ Moore's way. And he really, really almost had 4 great catches last week. There was 2 one-handers that he just could not bring in last week. So, if you want to do a Teddy DJ Moore stack, that's fine. Jerry is saying that there's snow in Denver. That doesn't really change much for me for that game. So we'll see. So with this game, though, you could easily stack Kamara. I think with the value on the slate, you kind of just have to lock in Alvin Kamara. We saw how he's been using the passing game without Michael Thomas. He's going to get, at least 7 targets. If he doesn't, that's because he's dominating on the ground. So Alvin Kamara, you pretty much just have to lock in on the slate. And I will say the early slate is kind of easier because they're taking out some of the other players that were great values as well, great plays as well. You're kind of trimming down the player pool a little bit more, so it's a little bit more focused. So you're not going to get unlucky. You're more likely to get less unlucky, I guess is the best way to phrase it. There's just a ton of great plays that just due to variance, someone's going to have a bad week because they're on, let's say, Kenny Galladay, and the touchdowns didn't go his way. That's going to happen this week, not with Kenny Galladay necessarily, but one of the great plays, one of them are not going to hit value. It's very rare where last week they go off and dominate all of them. But yeah, Mike Davis, I kind of ended up on him a little bit now with the news with Aaron Jones that he might sit. The opportunities that have still been there for him, over 20 per game. He's still getting used in the passing game. Last week was a tough matchup, and I'm not saying that this week isn't tough as well, but it's much easier. 12.5 DK points as his floor is phenomenal. 6.6 for him is a great price for 20 opportunities. I don't mind him at that price point. You could easily stack these two and be feeling pretty good about it. That's really it for this game. I do expect Jared Cook to get a ton of targets. I know I already mentioned kind of the receivers here. Tre'Quan Smith, I don't know. He hasn't looked that good to me on film. That's the problem with him. He hasn't looked bad. Don't get me wrong, but it's just a guy that you throw it to because he's on the field. He's not doing anything special. Now, he could easily do that. The opportunities are going to be there for him. That could happen. Deontay Harris is there as well. They like him. But to me, the one that's worth a GPP flyer, I don't think we have to play any of these guys in cash or anything like that. The one that's worth a GPP flyer is Callaway just because of how good he has looked on film. Defensively, I don't know. I hate the defense on the slate, to be honest with you. Winter storm warning, 15 degrees. That is interesting there so I didn't really like the Denver-New England game in general, but maybe you could play one of the defenses there. We'll get into that game a little bit later on. That could help, the slate a decent amount. Well, we'll start off with defense for the Bills. So I don't think we have to play them. they could easily go negative on this slate, honestly. Like, so yes, against the Jets in week 1, they put up 8 DK points, but if they put up 8 DK points, which has been their best production at 4.7, that is horrible. Like, that is not paying off the price point at all. I just don't think we can play Bills D at 4.7, although you usually can because of the value. I just wish the Bills D had been better recently. It's going to be tough to pay up for them. I just can't do it. And you got Sam Darnold back. Sam Darnold has been much better than Joe Flacco. It's pretty obvious there. Joe Flacco didn't look horrible, though. I thought, just look at the box score. I'm like, holy crap. Joe Flacco's not even like better than third-string quarterbacks. He looked decent. Okay, I was a little bit quick to pull the trigger on him to say that, he's done. But he is done. But he didn't look as bad as the box score said. I will say, Lameko P. Ryan's going to be interesting in this one. They're trying to get him more involved. You saw him have 10 opportunities. That could easily get up to 12. That could easily get up to 15 in this one. Not worth the dart throw because of all the RB value that's available. But I don't mind him. Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, one of those guys could go off. I just don't like to touch on that. It's tough to predict that. So on a normal slate, Stephon Diggs would be an elite play. He's been so consistent, and you saw in week 1 he had a great week against them as well. He does make a ton of sense in cash, although there are better plays a little bit lower priced than him, and that's what makes this slate so difficult because you got to play like Diggs, who great play. And I just can't find a way to, put him into my player pool and feel good about it, feel confident about it. Let's see here. So Redskins have opportunity to force turnovers against Cowboys. Yeah, they could, although I expect the Cowboys to play a lot better in that one. And then just real quickly, I already touched on this a little bit. Perryman, great discount play. Cole Beasley, I wish he was cheaper. I remember last year I was kind of just playing him a ton because he was at like 4.3, 4.4, 3.9 kind of the whole year. It was great, an easy play kind of if you didn't know who to go with. He was kind of the easy discount play. But with John Brown out, we got Gabriel Davis, who another great value play. The one game that John Brown sat out, he had 9 targets for 10.8 DK points. He was a guy that the Bills really like. So, maybe in a season-long league, if you're strapped for finding a receiver play this week, you could easily go up and pick him up in your season-long leagues as well. So Gabriel Davis, I don't mind for that purpose. Once again, I just don't see the point where we have to play him this week in DFS. You easily could. It does make a decent amount of sense. If you're liking it, go ahead and play him. I just don't see the point in playing him. You got better value in the same game with Barrios and with Perryman. So you got a receiver number 1 that isn't that bad. That should have had 15 DK points last week at 3.7. I mean, that's tough to pass up. Then I will say Tyler Kroft, interesting value play. Chris Herndon or Ryan Griffin, one of those two could go off. It wouldn't surprise me that much. Moving on to the next game, Detroit versus Atlanta. So this is easily going to be the easiest game to stack on the whole slate. So Matthew Stafford, I like him a ton. You could play Matthew Stafford in a lot of your builds. And I've touched on this stat point a decent amount in the last few weeks. The Atlanta Falcons are giving opposing quarterbacks 10 to 11 plus more fantasy points per game on their average. So Stafford's averaging 17.9 DK points. He could easily get 29 DK points this week. That's what that stat said. So he easily could have had 2 more touchdowns last week, which would have, obviously put him over 20 DK points. Those goal line carries went to AP and DeAndre Swift, so I don't mind him. I remember on last week's live stream I said, DeAndre Swift is not a bad punt play. I don't mind him, although there are better options. And obviously DeAndre Swift went off and had a great week last week. That was kind of cool to see. He could easily do that again, although it's kind of the same thing as last week. There's no point in playing him unless you're trying to do like a game stack. So if you're trying to do a game stack, it does make sense. But other than that, there's better values and there's better payout plays than Swift, although he did look good. That was exciting to see. I was kind of happy to be on that. I will say Todd Gurley. The difference between Todd Gurley and Freeman has been that Freeman has looked better thus far, except for last Thursday. Thursday was a horrible game for him. Obviously, he looked bad, had a bad fumble, got injured. But before that, Freeman was looking good. Still, Todd Gurley has been used exactly how we kind of thought he would be this year. He's not a bad play. I don't mind it going against Detroit there. There's much better plays than him. And then what do you do with this? You got Ridley, Jones, Galladay. Once again, this reminds me of last week with the Vikings. You could easily stack. Let me just do a game stack of this one actually then, because I'm talking about it so much. You got Ridley, you got Jones. Yeah, Galladay. You could easily make this happen, and it's tough to know which one to confidently say pay up for Ridley, he's going to go off. Pay up for Julio, he's going to go off. We don't really know which one's going to go off. You kind of think that both of them are going to. You just can't predict that in this matchup. I mean, you would like to be able to. It's just a guessing game. Now, theoretically, yeah, they both should go off. But to confidently say, yeah, Julio Jones over Ridley, that's just idiotic. You kind of just play both of them. Maybe split your ownerships there if you're trying to do a bunch of GPP stacks. That's fine. But for the most part, you can kind of game stack and just predict that this is going to be a high-scoring game, and you're going to get to 180, 170 for your lineup total. TJ Hawkinson, I don't mind. He's fine. And this is kind of the base of the lineup that I would go with for a game stack. Obviously, Kenny Galladay, still a core play, still should go off. Just been a stud. I love his floor as well. Matt Ryan is inconsistent there, infamous he is, but with Julio back, that does help him a little bit. That does really matter. Without your star players, it's tough to produce. Look at Carson Wentz. I mean, that has been phenomenal what he's been able to do without his weapons. So, obviously, Matt Ryan doesn't have the rushing upside that Wentz has, so he kind of just takes some sacks when the players weren't open. But yeah, this game stack, I like it a ton. So we'll move on to the next game here. Cleveland versus Cincinnati. Another interesting one. Another one where, hey, we can pay up for Kareem Hunt in this one. I touched on it a decent amount on the 9-5 write-up. Bengals aren't that good against the rush. Giving up the second most yards per carry. Kareem Hunt, yeah, he did have a bad game last week, but he was a little bit banged up. It was a tough matchup. This is a much easier matchup, and he should be able to take advantage of it. At this price point, I don't mind it, although I'd much rather pay down for Mike Davis. But then you also have Giovanni Bernard here, who I already touched on it a little bit earlier. Going to be a great value play. Now, if Aaron Jones is ruled out, it's going to be tough for me to pay down for Giovanni Bernard because Jamal Williams would be there. And then we also have J.D. McKissic, who I mentioned on the Core Plays video last week or earlier on in the week. You have Justin Jackson as well. So there is too much RV value on the slate. Giovanni Bernard, I don't expect him to break the slate, but I do expect him to easily hit value. Quarterback-wise, just don't play either of the two. They could go off. Obviously, a quarterback can go off on any slate. It's just not that predictable. Tyler Boyd, I like him a ton. The targets that he gets in the slot are raising his floor up a ton. So 7.3 DK points as a base, that's fine. That's not horrible, but still saw 5 targets in that game. Still had 4 receptions. Didn't have that much receiving yards, but still not bad. And then you look at what he did against Cleveland in week 2, 20.2 DK points. And that was kind of a sign of things to come for that Cleveland defense, as they have been giving up the most points to slot receivers this year. So, Tyler Boyd at 5.4, an absolutely amazing price point for him in a matchup that he should be able to go off and dominate. I like him a ton, and there's a lot of decent receiver plays at that same price point. It's going to be tough for me to pass up on Tyler Boyd, although I definitely get it. He's one where on the early slate you could play him, but with the full slate, it does make it a little bit difficult to fit him into your builds. After that, this is the interesting spot because Austin Hooper is out. I didn't mind Austin Hooper. You got Harrison Bryant, actually, who's been playing a little bit more snaps per game than David Njoku. It's tough to say which one's going to play the most tonight or today. I kind of expect it to be Bryant. He's priced down a little bit more. If anything, they're going to split snaps and maybe split targets. Obviously, Njoku is a talented guy. He's a guy that wanted to get traded, voicing that this week and last week. It's just tough to say which one's going to go off. But I would just rather pay down for the cheaper price one and the one that's been playing more snaps recently. That's what makes the most sense to me. All right, so we're getting into the Green Bay game. Let's see if we have an update on Aaron Jones just yet. I'm going to pull it up on Twitter here. Oh, Drew, thanks for the follow, man. Infamous liking the tweet. I like that as well. So let's see here if we have any Twitter news on him. Might have to go to Roto World here in a second to see. Nothing just yet. Come on, we need the news. All right, we don't have it just yet, apparently. That's unfortunate. We definitely need that news. I mean, if he plays, you expect him to dominate. I'm not playing OBJ there, Infamous, but You look at what Aaron Jones has done in his career against easy matchups, just absolutely go off. Dave hasn't seen anything yet. All right, keep me posted, Dave. We need to know. I mean, that is honestly breaking the slate, whether he's in or whether he's out. Kind of unfortunate. I kind of hate that because I have two different builds going right now. One with Aaron Jones in, one with him out. Obviously, the one with him out has Devontae Adams and Jamal Williams pretty much locked in, which I kind of hate doing. I hate kind of pairing a receiver and running back together, but that's kind of just the week that we got. And why am I doing that? Because Houston's been horrible defensively. You look at efficiency ratings, you look at quarterback ratings, they've just been the worst defense looking at that, or bottom five at least. You saw what Derrick Henry did against them. You saw what Ryan Tannehill did against them. And I think that's a good point. You look at the quarterbacks that had the best quarterback ratings, Tannehill, I guess Wilson, Rodgers. Houston Texans, their defense, their opponent ranks last in quarterback rating. So you got a very efficient Aaron Rodgers, other than last week, going against the defense that is the most efficient to the passing game. I expect Rodgers to dominate in this one, really. You could easily game stack. I mean, this is a sneaky game stack because of all the other top quarterback plays that are on the slate. So I'd say that Aaron Jones does it, unfortunately. I mean, they have to release the news. I think at 11 is when the news has to be finalized. But Aaron Jones states you're locking in Devontae Adams. I mean, he's just going to get 10 targets in this one, and that's just going to happen. After that, you got the Randall Cobb revenge game, although I don't really think that he's a guy that cares about revenge too much. You got St. Brown back. I don't like that. He just has never looked good. MVS could easily break a big one. He did see 5 targets last week, 8 targets the week before that. That's all without Allen Lazard out. He could easily go off. If you're doing a game stack, it does make sense. And then let's see that Jordan Atkins news actually real quick. I think he was going to play. Okay, so he's not. Okay, he's not going to play. So Darren Fells, once again, decent tight end play. If you want to roll with him, you can. With Jordan Atkins out, he's looked good. Had that one big play against Jacksonville, who we were on that week. He was our value tight end that week. And then came off and went off against the Titans last week with 20 DK points, 7 targets. I don't mind him for game stack purposes. He makes a ton of sense. Don't mind Tanyan as price point as well. But for game stack purposes, I don't mind this. David Johnson hasn't really looked good, but he's been producing fantasy-wise. If he falls into the end zone, I could see him getting, 16, 17 DK points at that price point. That's not horrible, but once again, that's only a game stack play. All right, so moving on to the next game here, Dallas versus Washington. So we have gotten a decent amount of questions about this one, a little bit of hype for this one this week. So Dalton kind of did Dalton things last week. Played horrible in primetime, which I'm not going to lie, I forgot on the write-up for the showdown slate. I forgot that Dalton kind of sucks in primetime games, which is not a stat that you should really follow at all, but it is something to note. Like Kirk Cousins doesn't play that well or doesn't win games in primetimes. It's an interesting thing to note. Chase needs a tight end. Dalton Schultz, Hayden Hurst, or Fells. So I'll talk about Dalton Schultz here real quick since you brought that up. He does have a great matchup. The targets have been there pretty much. He was getting peppered with targets in those games where the Cowboys were playing from behind. I'm not exactly sure that this is going to be the case this week. I love the matchup with him. I think I'd rather go with him. But Fowles is tough to pass up. That game could be high scoring. That's tough. I don't think I can go with Hayden Hurst this week, although I get why he's in play for you. For me, it's in between Fowles and Schultz. Is that a season-long question or is that a DFS question? Because it does matter for that. If it's like season-long, I typically like to, like if you're going against Deshaun Watson, you just play Fowles. That makes the most sense. If you're playing against Matt Ryan, you play Hurst. If you're playing against Dalton, you play Schultz. But if it's a DFS question, that's just tough. And if you could pay up for Hunter Henry, I'd much rather do that. Yeah, it's just tough. I honestly, I don't like that range, and I've been doing my builds over if I can't get up to Henry, and I've just been going down to like the value tight ends that I touched on a little bit earlier. It's a tough one, but we'll go back into this one. I really do like Kyle Allen still. I went back and watched this film a couple of times because I hate that I'm hyping him up, but the guy really just has had like 4 horrible plays, and it kind of goes back to last year. His bad plays are horrible, okay? Like they're just turnovers, they're bad sacks, they're plays that shouldn't happen for an NFL quarterback. That's what he was really bad at. But He's pretty good at decision making otherwise. He's able to make most of the throws. He doesn't have that much velocity in his ball. But the key thing here is what he's done DK wise the last 2 weeks and his price point and the matchup, okay? He's kind of checking all the boxes that way. 42 passing attempts last week. The Cowboys could easily get up, and Kyle Allen could be forced to throw the ball a ton again. So if we're going to get a quarterback that's throwing, 35 to 40 times in a matchup at this price point, in an easy matchup, it's tough for me to pass that. And on the early slate, I'm deciding between like him and Rodgers pretty much for my quarterback. And, the rain does worry me. I'm not sure how much that is raining, but I'm not too worried about it. The thing with the Aaron Jones news now is that it opens up Zeke to our player pool. He is the most consistent running back since he's been in the league. He's kind of priced down slightly for the amount of touches that he gets. I'm surprised that he's not consistently 8K on DK slates, but he's getting used in the passing game when they need to, which is great. He had a bad game. Tony Pollard played the most snaps he has played the whole year, taken away from Zeke because of his, fumbling issues, and he still scored 14 DK points. If Aaron Jones is out, I still like Zeke a ton, so you could easily play him as well. If you lock in Kamara and Zeke, you're locking in at least 30 DK points with the upside of, 50, maybe 60 if Kamara goes off. So I don't mind that. It's not a great matchup, and he's going to be lower owned than he should be. But if Aaron Jones is out, that's kind of, you can just roll with him. All right, so we got Terry McLaurin here. Still love him as a play. I expect him to score like 20 DK points in this one. He hasn't had a great matchup thus far this season, but he's been able to produce in these tough matchups. And the targets have been there. Against the Rams, he still saw 7 targets. That means they are forcing. Oh, no. DP breaking the news. Oh, no. Aaron Jones is out. Okay. Devontae Adams, lock him in. Jamal Williams, don't know if you have to lock him in, but he's going to be a strong play. Just because he's going to get used in the passing game. And don't be surprised if A.J. Dillon gets like 12 touches. That's tough. That sucks. That is interesting. All right. Well, after this live stream, I'm adjusting some builds that I made earlier on in the week for the full slate, the Thursday through Monday night slate. I had Aaron Jones in there, so got to adjust that. McKinnon you got to go McKinnon. Got to go McKinnon, Aaron. I know you're worried about, Jeff Wilson, he's active, and also Hasty looked great. He did. But McKinnon's going to be used in the passing game. We know that. Deontay Johnson is back. We got to see how he's going to be used. James Washington looked great last week. He was kind of, I don't want to say he was the number one last week, but that's kind of how they used him. And then you got, obviously, Chase Claypool has looked absolutely elite. He seems like he's going to be the next star receiver. It's honestly tough to know there because you got James Conner, who's been looking good as well. So that's a good question. I think I would favor McKinnon, just the passing game floor that he has. I like it a little bit more. Definitely a safer. He's worried about it. So Adams, yeah. Let's go back to that Green Bay game real quick with Adams. So I just want to touch on this one more time for, some people that might just be coming in. Let's just look at the targets here. 10 and 17 in the 2 full games that he played. And 10 against Tampa Bay in a matchup that was kind of tough. Obviously, we saw that. He still had 12.1 DK points. And then against Detroit, he was well on his way to having another great game. Against the Texans, who are a horrible matchup, if he doesn't score 20 DK points, that's going to just be shocking. Like, he should easily score 20 DK points in this one. He could easily go for more than that. It's pretty much, if you want to take the week-to-week stuff out of it, if you just played Adams, Zeke, and like Hopkins every week, and I guess Christian McCaffrey if you could too. If you just played that base like every week in DFS, you would be profitable throughout the whole season and just kind of figure out the rest of it. So Juju, no, I can't play Juju. I'll talk in that game a little bit more. The thing with Juju is that they really just seem like they're moving on from him. They really do. I mean, they didn't sign him. They didn't extend his contract. They might franchise take him next year, but it kind of seems like they were trying to force him out next year. And he could be a guy that is picked up next year and holds great value season long on a new team, he could shine. All those, I really love what the Steelers have done with the receiver spot. You got a great slot receiver in Juju Smith. You got Chase Claypool has looked great. Deontay Johnson has looked great. And James Washington, the deep threat. I mean, I really love what they've done. Eric Ebron, who's like a big play guy. James Conner, obviously a great factor on the run game. I love what they've done offensively. It just makes it tougher to predict, especially when all of them are active. It makes it really tough to predict week to week which ones are going to go off. And for me, I just can't play Juju this week. Yeah, no, don't do that, Gary. Do not play Murray and Kamara there. Let me go back to that game. I don't get why you'd want to do that. Let's see here. So Latavius 4.8. Yeah, I don't get why you'd want to do that, to be honest with you, just because of all the other running back value that's open. I guess I get it with all those other guys out. That Murray's going to be involved in the game plan. I get that, but let's see here. I haven't got to this game yet. The other news that we want to see is confirmation that Justin Jackson is going to play. I'd much rather play him than Murray. I'd much rather play, honestly, J.D. McKissick. I kind of didn't get to this just yet, but the guy's been playing more snaps than Antonio Gibson. Been consistent as well. Although we don't have to play him as well because there's better value with Jamal Williams. You can go down to Jamal Williams easily. So, and Giovanni Bernard. I'd much rather play those guys who are safer. They're going to be the RB1s in the offense. I'd much rather go with that. 3 RBs for cash outside of Kamara. Zeke for me, Mike Davis, and then one of the value running backs for sure. It's really kind of just getting lucky there. I'd rather go Jamal Williams at this point because he's the cheapest, but Justin Jackson going to be fine. Giovanni Bernard going to be fine as well. I saw a lot of people talking Antonio Gibson up, which I don't think is wrong, but all right, so Dave's coming in with Robert Tonyan active. I don't mind that if you're doing – I'm not sure if that game's available on the showdown slate. I did really want the Jets game available on the showdown slate because I was going to attack Berrios as probably the captain. They might have that available now, but when I checked last night, that wasn't available. So if you're doing the showdown slate for that Packers game, you could play Tonyan in there in a flex spot. So Sam Darnold's active. I like that. Jamison Crowder is confirmed as out. So great. That's exactly what we want to see. Berrios is going to be good. Perriman is going to be a good play. But yeah, going back to Antonio Gibson real quick. A lot of people are talking him up. It's wrong. Okay. He's looked decent. He's looked good. But I don't get why they're talking him up as much as they are and ignoring J.D. McKissick. That's what's wrong about it. Now, yes, they are both good plays. But J.D. McKissick has been the one playing more and has been getting used more in the passing game. In a game where you probably think Dallas is going to be down, although I kind of like Washington as a team. They look pretty decent. They should have won last week. That was horrible. That was bad coaching. That was just frustrating to watch. Mims season. Is he active? I think he is active, and maybe, but it's tough to guess that he's going to go off. That'd be crazy. Not a bad waiver wire ad there, Aaron, if he's available. I'm not sure. Is he available? Aaron's in my season-long league, so. No, Aaron Jones is not playing. We confirmed him out there, Champ Grind. Happy to see you in the chat there, man. But then Logan Thomas, Schultz, they're fine pump plays at tight end. I'm perfectly fine with those two. And then Dontrell Inman, he was looking like he was going to be a great value play. He still isn't bad, but there's so much other open value plays at receiver. There's no point in playing him other than like a game stack. Let me just do a quick game stack because I don't mind this one. It's kind of a sneaky one that you can game stack. So let's say that we think Washington is going to be playing from behind. I kind of hate to game script, but maybe we can do that. You're going to have to kind of guess to get lucky, guessing which one is going to go off in this matchup. Like I said, Washington has been casually good on defense and as a team, but you could easily game stack this one. I mean, I like this game stack. Nice. I want Perriman. I don't know. I want him for the short term. I really like Perriman for short term purposes for the Jets. All right, now getting into Pittsburgh versus Tennessee. Mims is active. All right. Yeah, that one would be fun to game stack. That Jets-Bills game would be super fun to do a showdown build. And I might see if they made that available after this because you kind of just know who's going to be available and who the studs are going to be on that slate. I kind of like that. But getting into the Pitt-Tennessee game, I can't play Big Ben at his price point. I wish he was a little bit cheaper. He's been pretty consistent other than that game against the Cleveland Browns, which was kind of surprising because the Browns were horrible in that game. Just kind of outlier game. I don't want to play Tannehill at this price point in this matchup. James Conner, I'm perfectly fine if you guys are just looking at the running backs and saying, hey, I don't want to play Kareem Hunt, I don't want to play Mike Davis, and just going with James Conner. Been super consistent. You know, he has been a great running back since he's been the starting running back for the Steelers. Very consistent as a fantasy producer, so I don't mind that play. Let's see here. So AJ Brown, he's active. It was a little bit worrisome to see if he was going to play or not. He did miss 2 practices, but he should be good to go. 7, 9, and 8 targets. You know, I like him a ton. Okay, like him and Kenny Galladay are pretty much the same play to me, although Kenny Galladay is in a much, much better matchup. Going back to the Steelers receiver situation, it's tough to predict what's going on there. Very tough to predict. It's kind of just throwing darts there. You got Corey Davis back, which is great for, you know, Tennessee as a whole. Humphreys has been pretty consistent this year. He's kind of the Cole Beasley of last year, it seems like, which he was priced down. They kind of priced it up to the point where you can't really play anyone in this game, which does suck. Jonnu Smith, priced up too much in a tough matchup. Eric Ebron, too inconsistent, although if you want to throw like a GPP flyer on him, that's fine. Really, in this game, I'm just rolling with Connor, and I'm just going to roll with A.J. Brown. Defensively, I don't want to play either of them. Both offenses have been pretty good. Curtis Samuel is active. That doesn't really move the needle too much for me. Do I like A.J. Dillon? So I don't mind A.J. Dillon, although I just don't think it's worth it in cash. I'd much rather play Jamal Williams in cash. A.J. Dillon could easily go off. They could easily watch that Titans film and, you know, just think, we got to pound A.J. Dillon. That could happen, and I think it will. I think he'll get around 12 touches, but Jamal Williams should be the much safer one. Michael Gallup to GB. That needs to happen. Something like that. If the Cowboys lose this one, that could happen. So Derrick Henry. So, no, I can't play Derrick Henry. So the thing about Derrick Henry is he is absolutely horrible behind the line of scrimmage. And Pittsburgh's D is good. And I expect them to get pressure, and I expect them to, you know, be able to stop him behind the line of scrimmage. You look at the games that Derrick Henry goes off, it's pretty easy. You see what's happening there. He gets a little bit of room and he's able to make something happen. He's a guy that needs a little bit of space and then he's gone. I just don't see him getting that much space against the Steelers defense. So no, I can't play him at this price point in this matchup. It's just not the correct move. He could go off and he easily could. You know, he's a guy that can break one touchdown and get there. It's just not as likely this week. Moving on to TB versus the Raiders. So this one is interesting. This is the one where if we're paying up for defense, we're just paying up for the Buccaneers. That Las Vegas line, I think that they're all active, but they haven't practiced the whole week due to COVID reasons. So the whole like starting line couldn't practice. I think everyone kind of knows that, but still, I like that a decent amount. Just the chemistry is not going to be there as much this week, although it shouldn't be that big of a factor. And I don't exactly want to pay up for them, but that's the route that you guys can go. Other than that, what do we do? Like Leonard Fournette is finally back, so I don't think we can play Ronald Jones that much. I don't think he's going to get that 20 opportunities that he has been getting. Maybe he will, but Leonard Fournette's still there. He's going to get some work, I believe. You know, he's going to get around 5 to 12 opportunities, maybe 15 opportunities. Kind of just going to ride the hot hand there. So you can't really play Ronald Jones. Everyone else is in a tough matchup. Darren Waller's in a tough matchup. It's just tough to, you know, really know what to do. Josh Jacobs, not a good matchup. This is mostly just a punt for me. Can't really use anyone in that game, unfortunately. So we'll move on to the next game. This is one where I believe someone said the weather was bad. Or no, that was the Denver KC game. That's right. Yeah, this is another one where I'm kind of just staying away. You had Aaron asking about McKinnon. So we'll touch on this one. So this is interesting. He really didn't get used in the passing game that much last week. And obviously in week 5 against Miami, Raheem Mostert played a full game. So it wasn't surprising that McKinnon wasn't involved. You know, Hasty did look good last week. It does seem like Jeff Wilson is going to be active. He's expected to play. It's kind of just a stay away, to be honest with you guys, at the running back spot, which is unfortunate. You just got a lot of pieces. Like, they go 3 deep on each side of the ball, running back-wise. It's tough to predict then. Deebo Samuel, I don't mind at his price point. He looked good last week. He's kind of looked good since he's been active. The last 3 weeks, you kind of saw him get progressively better, and more confident, I think is the best word to use as a player. Sometimes with those injuries, it's tough for players to come back and have the confidence right away. You've seen him just be his normal self, especially last week. Bird is still too cheap. San Francisco has actually given up a decent amount of points to opposing receivers' averages. I think it's like 4 to 3 more points on average, which is an extremely high amount. So technically speaking, Bird is averaging 7.7 DK points per game. He could average, given that data point, he would put up like 10.7. Now I don't want to use that. It's just kind of an interesting tidbit there. Nothing really much at the tight end spot. The afternoon games kind of suck. So for the afternoon slate, it's pretty easy. You know what you're going to do. You're going to attack that Jacksonville Chargers game. Yeah, that pace of the Patriots 49ers game does look horrible. I don't expect Cam Newton to do anything. I don't expect Jimmy G to do anything. Maybe Jimmy G could get a couple of touchdowns there. It's just nothing that you want to chase. And there's not even any lineup fillers in this game, except for Debo, but there's much better plays at his price point, so you're not going to end up on him that much. The lineup path just isn't leading you to any of these players. All right, so now the Denver KC game. If you want to play the Broncos D, given the weather concerns, I think the weather report is going to hurt some people today. Yes, it's tough, but we saw last week the weather was still bad for the Bills game, and Mahomes still put up 20.6 DK points. Edwards-Helaire had a good week. Tyreek Hill, he's cheap for the main slate. Yes, he only had 3 targets last week, but it was a tough game. You're not going to throw deep balls to Tyreek Hill with a wet football in conditions like that. Now, yes, it's supposed to snow in this game and whatnot. I still think he makes for a fine GPP flyer at his price point. Going to be a lower owned stack, too. You got Demarcus Robinson, who was one of our captain's picks in that game against Buffalo because Sammy Watkins was out. It was kind of easy to see that he'd be the one getting involved more. Hardman's just getting used as a gadget player right now. And at Robinson's price point, I don't mind him. But the problem is we have great receiver value on the slate, so we don't exactly have to play him. Kind of sucks. I don't mind Noah Fant in this one and Kelsey. These two Titans I don't mind at all. Fant's been consistent. I talked about Albert, whatever his name is, Alberto, if you will, as a fine value play. That's not happening anymore. Fant's active. Don't mind him as a play. Wish he was cheaper, though, because the tight end in the next slate, and I'll touch on that right now. Hunter Henry, I like a little bit better. He's a little bit cheaper. Whether helps CEH? I mean, possibly. Really tough to say. It's a tough matchup-ish. You saw the Patriots not really be able to establish the run last week, which really got them in trouble. That's been their strength. So it's tough to say if that'll help CEH. Be interesting to see how much Bell is used. I don't think he'll get used that much, but I don't know. I can't play CH in DFS, and in season long, you're pretty much just playing him because you have him. Not a better option there. Hunter Henry, though, tight end wise for the Chargers. So the Jacksonville Jaguars are pretty poor defensively. One of the worst defenses. You look at efficiency ratings, they're one of the worst defenses. So Hunter Henry at this price point, only one game under 10 DK points. That was against TB, who, as we're seeing, is a pretty good defense. The Jacksonville Jaguars are not. He could get, 7 targets in this one and put up, 14 DK points. I'm kind of expecting that. So if I can pay up for a mid-tier tight end, I want to pay up for Hunter Henry. It makes the most sense. You got Justin Herbert there at a great price point. Once again, the Jaguars are not good defensively. I like him. I don't mind him. For the afternoon slate, I would play Justin Herbert probably. Maybe Mahomes, maybe Kyler, but Herbert's priced down to the point where it really makes a lot of things open up for your player pool. I don't get why Josh Kelly is higher priced than Justin Jackson. That's just weird. Obviously, Justin Jackson was the RB number 1 in this offense. Outsnapped Kelly by, I forget what it was, 41 snaps to 21 snaps. So he dominated in snap share. Had a pretty solid week, 14.4 DK points, 6 targets, and the targets aren't going to go away. If he plays on the late slate, you kind of just have to lock in Justin Jackson, I think. Then Keenan Allen. Guy has been a target monster. 11, 19, 10, 8. He had back spasms, and the team doesn't seem to be worried about that at all. Keenan Allen just makes a ton of sense. On the main slate, I've been struggling Do I want to fit Keenan Allen in there or not? Because you got Boyd there. You got Terry McLaurin there. You got Kenny Golladay there. Those are all going to be strong plays. And you got A.J. Brown there. It's tough to pass up on those targets, though, with Keenan Allen in an easy matchup. The only worry, and, I don't think going back to week 5 with Jimmy G as the quarterback, I don't think that was the wrong play. He didn't produce, but if it was the wrong play, the only thing that made it the wrong play was that he's coming off of an injury. So with Keenan Allen coming off of an injury, that could be the reason why it's the wrong play, although it's the right process. Like, easy matchup. He should easily hit value. Then Mike Williams is priced down a decent amount. We've seen the big play upside with him. I was really kind of hoping that Keenan Allen would be out because Mike Williams would have been a lock there. But once again, I'm going to do a game stack of this one because it's pretty easy to do. Justin Herbert. You could even go Jackson. You can go Mike Williams. You could easily just onslaught this side of the ball, and you're feeling pretty good about it. Keelan Cole, DJ Chark. I kind of like DJ Chark, kind of like Keelan Cole in this one, but they're nothing more than game stack plays. So you could do this, although I wouldn't exactly want to do it, but not bad. Not a bad, casual game stack. Then we got one more game, and then I'm going to get to kind of the betting stuff here in a second. Last week was pretty good for the betting stuff. So get your questions in for the DFS slate, and then we'll be wrapping it up. So kind of the best game. Yes, it got moved to Sunday night, but yes, it's still on the main slate. I'm not sure if it's still available on the afternoon slate. I'm pretty confident that it is because I remember, if I remember correctly, I had Kyler Murray on my main build for the afternoon slate. And this is one where I am favoring early slate and afternoon slate just as much as I am the main slate. I'm worried about Minshew bench reports. I haven't seen that, but it wouldn't surprise me because Minshew has been horrible. I mean, not horrible, I shouldn't say that. He's had some really bad misses in the passing game. He's been great in the pocket, but had some horrible misses in the passing game. He's missed multiple touchdowns each of the last 2 weeks, which really been bad. But Kyler Murray, if you can play him on the afternoon slate, on the main slate, just do it. Look at the average here, guys. A floor of 20 points or 24.7 DK points. That's phenomenal. We saw last week he struggled. He was bad. And he still scored 28.9 DK points in his worst game, maybe as a starter. That can't be with Glennon. I didn't even know Glennon was still the backup in Jacksonville, which kind of explains Jacksonville's whole situation, I guess. But Kyler Murray, if you guys can pay up for him, you should. The problem with the play is we don't know if DeAndre Hopkins is active. I think he's going to play. It seems like he's going to play. Tough to play him on the main slate, though, because of that. You just play Devontae Adams and kind of just go with it, kind of roll with that. But you could easily game stack this game as well. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, we know that those guys are going to be the players. You could expect, Christian Kirk to maybe get a couple of deep balls, and you're sitting pretty. If you want to play Chris Carson, you could fit him in there. And then you're just really strapped with value. You're probably playing Jets D, which is fine. I like Jets D as kind of a discount play. Let me finish out this build because I'm interested in it now. Just put in Jamal for now. It's like a default value play. Then you're left at that horrible price point that, who was that? Gary was it Gary? Someone was asking about it. Oh no, Chase was asking about it. That horrible price point this week on the DFS slate. I would probably go Logan Thomas. I don't know. Maybe Greg Olsen early. Try to game stack it. I don't know. But you guys can see the lineup path here where it could be extremely successful for a game stack purpose. I don't mind that at all. Maybe you just go down to Harrison Bryant, pay out for a better defense. I don't know. Like I said, I don't really like any of the defenses too much. Maybe you guys think I'm crazy about talking up Kyle Allen and you guys want to go up Dallas D. You could do that. They could easily get like a pick six with the amount of mistakes, horrible mistakes that Kyle Allen makes per game. That could happen. I could see that. But maybe Broncos D if you're thinking that the weather's going to be a factor. Close out that build with that. All right, so let me get into the betting side of things, and then we'll be wrapping this bad boy up in a second. All right, quick water break, and then we're going to get it going. So right off the bat, does this seem like too high of a total for you guys for the Bills Jets game? Because it does to me. Thoughts on AJ Green and DK for DK on GPP? It's fine. I get it. Once again, I just think there's better plays around his price point. I get it though. Not bad. If you want to do that, if he's like your last player in your player pool, he's not someone you should go out of your way. But if he's like the last flex, or not even flex, if he's the last receiver and the last player in your build, I'm fine with it. But don't go out of your way to put him in there. It's like it's not one of those plays I'm going to talk you off of, but it's not one of those ones I'm going to say, yeah, play it. So yeah, Bills, Jets. To me, this honestly seems a little bit too high. 10 seems a little bit too high with Darnold back. I don't mind the Jets defense. It is a divisional game. This game could be close. Don't love it though. Anyone expect the Packers to go out and have a statement game? It's either they're going to have a statement game, go off and dominate, or the Texans are going to win. I really don't see anything in between. I don't see this being the spread. I don't see it being a close game. Either the Packers are going to dominate, or Texans are going to be able to win by, 6, maybe a field goal. But the Packers are not winning by 3. They're going to win by more than this, or the Texans are going to sneak out a win. Now, maybe the Texans have like a nice little comeback. I just don't see that happening. I'll get to the Panthers here in a second there, Andre. So this Pittsburgh versus Tennessee game is very interesting. It is one that I would not want to bet on at all. I think I would favor the Steelers a little bit more. But it's not one that I would want to bet on at all. So we got the Panthers here. He's got plus 250. Yeah, it is pretty crazy. This one's pretty crazy. I would favor the Panthers. Yeah, I agree. I would definitely favor the Panthers there. 6.5 too. With MT out, with Sanders out. Yeah, I think that's not like a lock bet, but that's pretty intriguing there. I'd probably go with it. I'm going with the Panthers there. Cleveland versus Bengals. This one is definitely a push for me as well. You don't know what Browns you're going to get. Are you going to get the ones who have been figuring out ways to win, or are you going to get the ones that we saw last week? The Bengals have been relatively decent as well. I think I'd favor the Browns in this one, although I don't feel good about it. Another one I don't feel good about, which is kind of the theme for this week, Dallas Cowboys versus Washington Redskins. Last week, this ended up becoming a push. I really liked the Washington football team. I really liked them to win. They should have. I mean, they outplayed the Giants. They went for 2, which was just a weird play. They should have just kicked the field goal because they were dominant in the game. They should have easily won that game. It's tough. Dallas D has been horrible. Washington, I think, overall is the better team right now. Obviously, Dallas is great offensively. I'll go with the Cowboys just to make a pick, but that's another stay away. This one is one that I feel pretty good about. The Detroit Lions were one of my favorite teams to make the playoffs. They haven't looked bad. With Kenny Galladay back, they've looked pretty like kind of what I thought they would look like at the beginning of the year. So I'd much rather bet the Detroit Lions against the Atlanta Falcons, who, yes, the Falcons have looked better recently as well, but I think the Detroit Lions are going to win this one. Feel pretty decent about that. DeAndre Swift was looking good. Kenny Galladay's in a great matchup. Matthew Stafford should be able to dominate. They're looking better as a team as a whole, so I don't mind that. Tampa Bay versus the Raiders. How great would it be for the Buccaneers to come off of that great win up against the Packers, recently signing Antonio Brown, to just go out and lose to the Raiders, who haven't had their offensive line practice with them the whole week? That'd be pretty funny. It could happen, honestly. I get why the spread's only -4. I get it. I'd favor the Buccaneers in this one, but the Raiders and Gruden have been game planning well to keep games close. They have been. It wouldn't shock me if this is a 3-point game, a field goal to win it. Another one that, kind of stay away from, but if I'm picking, I would choose the Buccaneers in this one. I want to give you guys that help there. This one, Chiefs versus the Denver Broncos. So the Chiefs actually casually haven't looked that good, okay? I'd much rather, I kind of like the Broncos in this one, at +7. They're good defensively. They got Noah Fant back. They got Melvin Gordon back. Drew Lock is not horrible. If he had an accurate deep ball, he'd be great for DFS and fantasy purposes. He just doesn't have that just yet. But at +7, I actually like the Broncos a decent amount, especially with that weather concerns, although I'm not too concerned about it. Jaguars versus Chargers. Whew. Jaguars have actually been keeping games relatively close. I could see the Chargers getting up early, like by 2, maybe 3 touchdowns, and the Jaguars coming back in garbage time. So I think I would favor the Jaguars in this one at, +7.5. I like that a decent amount. Thoughts on some underdog shots, Cowboys, Lions, Steelers. So, yeah, Cowboys I think I would favor in that one. Steelers I like more in that one for sure. And the Lions I love. I get why it's the point spread and everything is that. But I like the Lions to win that one. So I'd bet on that one. And then just closing out here, we got San Fran versus the Patriots. I don't know why the Patriots are favored in this one. San Fran kind of had a really strong bounce back week last week. Yes, you got Bill Belichick there, greatest coach ever, great at game planning and whatnot. They just looked horrible offensively last week, and maybe it was just because they didn't have practice and whatnot. But San Fran looked good last week against the Rams, who I think are one of the best teams in the league. They went off and kind of dominated as statement week. They could easily continue to do that. It's like, how good is Jimmy G going to play? That's what we got to know. I think I'd favor the Niners in this one. Although we know how banged up banged up they are on both sides of the ball. Patriots just haven't looked good. If they didn't have Bill Belichick as their coach, I don't think they would have a win, to be honest with you guys. It's been bad. Seahawks, I like 3.5. I like them. They're a much better team as a whole compared to the Cardinals. Especially with DeAndre Hopkins questionable, that does worry me. If he does sit, I expect this number to go up a little bit more. It's not something I'd want to attack too much, but given the way Kyler Murray looked passing the game as well, like if the Seahawks do get up early, maybe. I think that was just a bad game for Kyler, but for me, I do like this number for the Seahawks. And then Bears versus the Rams. Whew. For a team that is 5-1 to be +6 to the Rams, who just had a horrible week last week. That's pretty surprising. Although I would favor the Rams in that one, to be honest with you guys. But Bears have been figuring out a way to do it. They've been keeping the games close defensively. Nick Foles has been a great game manager. So it won't surprise me if that game is closer than that. That's a great point spread. I think I'd favor the Rams in that one. Maybe they get a late touchdown. I do expect that to be a close game, though. Maybe they get a late touchdown to put them at like +8, +10. But, oh, look at that. 11 o'clock right when I finished. I mean, that's just some good timing. I will go for about a minute more, though, here. If you guys have any questions, get those in. If not, I'm going to be closing this one up here in just a second. Bears been getting lucky. They have been. They have been horrible in a great way for them, at least. We all know they should have at least had 2 more losses. That's for sure. Let's see. I really want to know that Justin Jackson news and Hopkins news because that changes the main slate, which is why I'm favoring, early afternoon. But for you guys that are 9 to 5 members, I will be sending that update out here by 11:30 or 30 minutes from now. It's tough. There's a lot of value there. Makes the slate interesting, like I already touched on. Going to be a fun slate though with all the value. But Infamous is wondering about Melvin Gordon here. So we'll see. Melvin Gordon, no, because I expect Philip Lindsay and him to split carries. If the Chiefs do get up early, Lindsay should be involved in the passing game a little bit more. We'll go back to week 1 real quick. Lindsay had 8 opportunities like early in that game, and so did Melvin Gordon. If we remember correctly, I expect that to be the same. I expect them to split, right down the middle. But that's all I have for you guys this week. Hope you enjoyed the video. Appreciate all the live chat. Appreciate all the viewers coming in here. We're going to continue to grow this each and every week, so come back each and every week. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, I'm guessing you guys already liked and subscribed since you're here, but if you're not, give me a like